Rob Bednarz, how you doing, man?
Good, Nick. How are you?
Good, buddy. Good. I switched rooms here. This is my new bedroom in my home. I used to be in a totally white room. It was our guest room, and now I have the whole stand-up desk and everything. Trying to turn a corner with like extra productivity.
Yeah, you and me both. I did the same with this guest room. Put in the standing desk. I'm standing now, and I feel like most of us that are going to continue working from home did the same, right?
Yeah, for sure, dude. I think that like if getting that place to work that's like where you get shit done is super important for at least for me and how I work at home. I didn't know that or like how to do that right when the pandemic started. So it's been a process, but I'm there now and it's pretty productive throughout the day. So it's all good.
Yeah. Funny you mentioned that because my biggest issue was always taking the computer out of the room, and when I did that, I found myself working into late hours of the day or night even.
Yeah.
Um, so making it a habit that like this is my place for work. This
Yeah.
is where I open my computer and close it. It kind of works best.
That's kind of what I mean. Like this is my place to work. Like I love that idea of just like this is where I can be on. And then hopefully, if you do that correctly, then when you go downstairs or to the kitchen or whatever, like you aren't thinking about work and you get the chance to unplug for a couple hours.
Yeah, I wish I knew.
Yeah. Cool, man. So you and I have been connected through like the Chicago's sales kind of community for 5 or 6 years now. Really, really appreciate your friendship and even mentorship in terms of the top of the funnel stuff. I also just love prospecting. I don't know if you're in a role that does that still. I know you moved to an AE role like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe more like two or three. But tell me more about what you're doing now before we hop into some of the more deep stuff about motivation and work ethic and development that this podcast is all about.
Yeah. I love prospecting too. I think prospecting is something that I will continue doing no matter what my role is, always looking for new opportunities.
Mhm.
As an AE, I am closing new business. I'm talking to a lot of brands about a lot of things social media related, as you can imagine, working at Sprout Social.
Mhm.
Um, my role is unique. Our funnel, I think, is unique and I think is really strong, where we do have quite a number of incoming leads. That does kind of separate us from some of the other AEs that I speak with frequently at other orgs, but still prospecting, still looking for new opportunities, just being a little more particular with who I'm reaching out to.
Yeah. So you're an AE at Sprout Social. Is that still pretty transactional? I mean, it's all relative, right? Like my transactional might not be the same as another huge company or whatever. But, are you guys still closing so many deals per month or per quarter and like you're graded per quarter?
Yeah, I think it's still on more on the transactional front, at least in my segment,
Yeah.
being within the SMB space. So I only
Mhm.
work with organizations up to 50 employees, as LinkedIn defines it.
Mhm.
So definitely a volume game. And I think once we enter the 500 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000 spaces where we start to get a little more strategic.
Yeah, for sure. When you prospect, is it like, I'm going to get into these accounts, or do you have named accounts, or are your SDRs just keeping you so busy?
When I prospect, yeah, no. So we don't actually have SDRs that support my team.
Okay.
So we get trials that
Uh-huh.
show intent of using the platform. So then it's on us to reach out, schedule the meeting, get into conversations, and actually move that evaluation along.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking for opportunities, I will look at past trials or people who have checked us out in the past.
Mhm.
But I really like the new logo approach. So using
Yeah.
LinkedIn, strategically trying to
Uh-huh.
find low hanging fruit of
Uh-huh.
clear value for someone who would use the platform.
Yeah. My role is actually new business, but only into existing customers. I have 13 named accounts. I mean, they're huge. They're Motorola and Hyatt and Berkshire Hathaway. And under Berk, there's 180 different
There's everything.
subs. Like it's a blessing. I'm like, oh my God, so much amazing opportunity here for me to like just crush my number and sell value to the enterprise. But that idea of a new logo, like slapping that thing on your website, like, oh, Rob closed that. Like, I wish I had that still, because man, that was so fun the last 4 years, you know?
Yeah. No, it's always that prideful moment when you bring in a logo that everyone knows.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I told those stories at my interview, like for Microsoft. I was like, hey, so I closed Domino's, P&G, Walmart, and 1 year. Like, this is how I did it. This is why I think I did it well. This is why I could have done better. Right. And I think my would-be manager liked that stuff so much. He's like, okay, this kid has tenacity to the point where he can close cold deals. Like, that's you can't really teach that. So I'm super proud of myself for that reason. But one of the things that I'm just like struggling with right now is this idea of, and you and I always talk about this because I continue to want to get better at it, is like spending my time well. And this is episode 15 of the podcast. And I've asked the same question, or a form of the same question, to everyone. It's like, what do you do when you start your day? Like, what matters? And then how do you organize your time around that? So I'm going to keep going for a second, then I kind of want you to answer that for as long as you need, right? Like, for me, I have this to-do list. Some things are priority 1, 2, 3. Some things are priority like 77, right? But I find myself doing priority 77 because it's easy and quick, instead of focusing my time on A. And before I get to A, B, and C, I'm like, like, my time is gone, and I'm on another internal call or another customer call. So it's really about, my curiosity is about whether it's blocking time or setting goals. Really, how do you optimize your performance in a sales role?
Yeah, great loaded question, right? But to kick off, I think to your point, starting with the things that you don't want to do, right? Or the things that take up the most energy, those are typically the things that we should get done first in a day. I think it's harder in my role or anyone that is supported by an SDR, because your calendar is your calendar until it's not, right? Like, somebody's going to throw a meeting on your calendar and you don't have to show up, but you're probably inclined to show up. And so if you're, 9, 10 a.m. look free, but all of a sudden you have a meeting coming up at 10:30, which you weren't aware of, you can quickly lose sense of your time, and finding something on your calendar for even as little as 15 to 30 minutes can throw off your entire day, right? A customer's running late, you start the call late, you tend to go into your next call late, and it could have that trickle effect throughout your entire day. I think I took the approach originally when I first started because there was a lot of moving pieces in my role. I think, going back to your point of transactional versus strategic, this is definitely more transactional. So there's a lot of conversations that I'm having. So it was figuring out not so much what I was going to prioritize in the morning or in the afternoon, but what's going to take up the most calories to do, like what's going to take the most time. Separating that from anything that I can do outside of the typical 9 to 5, such as prospecting. Like, if I'm not making a call or an email, can I do that later or earlier? Can I start my day a little earlier? And that still didn't really work for me. I was still finding myself making these lists of things that I have to get through, and just, it seemed a little daunting. There was nothing fun about it. I never felt like I was accomplished, just kind of going through the motions of finishing it all. So something that I pulled from my BDR days that worked well is, instead of focusing on the time that you have, focus on the time that you don't have without thinking about it. And what I mean by this, let me ask you, how many times throughout the last month did you have someone cancel or reschedule?
I'd say, of all my meetings, whether it's customer or internal, 25 to 40%, I'd say.
25 to 40%. That's pretty decent, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So if 40% of your time is booked, you're not thinking about what you're going to do then, other than what you're supposed to do then, but all of a sudden it doesn't happen. What's the first thing you do when that meeting is pushed off?
Wow, that's a good one. So when I say 25 to 40, it's canceled or rescheduled. And most of that's rescheduled, right? Because, okay, this person can't join, so it's not worth having the meeting. But it's still like that moment that I'm supposed to join that, and it's rescheduled.
Right.
Dude, I feel so shameful. Like, I'll go to LinkedIn and I'll just poke around. Like,
okay.
Oh, cool. Free hour. It's like, that's where my mind goes.
And that's it, right?
Yeah.
It's that mindset of like, okay, well, now I have an hour to go grab an extra lunch, or poke around LinkedIn, check my Facebook, check my Instagram. When in reality, we're still within that window of 9 to 5 where we should be producing output.
Yeah.
So let's say, a typical meeting is 45 minutes. if you are trying to get yourself into that mindset and then you spend the first 10 minutes trying to figure out what's the best way to be productive within this 40-minute frame, or now, you've got 35 minutes left, that already ate away, 15% of your time. And then it's second guessing yourself, okay, is this actually the best thing I could be doing, or is this busy work? So what's worked for me is coming in when things are quiet. So in the office, I'd usually be in around 7:30. We started at 8:30. So not a lot of people on the floor, not a lot of conversations going on. Put my headphones in and I'm just cranking out emails, getting through all the stuff that maybe isn't going to push a deal along. Maybe it's more so like support almost in a way, but these are things that have to get done regardless. So I might as well knock them out sooner than later to get them off of my mind. To your point, like those things that we should be doing or prioritizing. But what I found really helpful is that setting up another calendar, almost like a mimic of your calendar, where you have a blank slate. And then you say, okay, if I had the entire day free, or if I had the entire week free, what would I be doing when and why? So I'm on a monthly quota. I would look at what my monthly goal is for the month, and then I'd work backwards. If I know that my conversion is, 10 conversations will lead to, 5 real evaluations, which will lead to 2 closes, and that gets me X amount of dollars I have to get here. I can kind of assume that I need to make this many calls and that many emails, have this many conversations, so be it. So then working backwards, I'll structure my empty calendar based on that. Like, okay, then I need to make this many calls on this day, this many emails here, prospect this many accounts here. And then I turn it off and I forget about it. But when those moments come, when somebody does reschedule, when somebody does cancel, when an hour does free up, I turn it back on and I know exactly what I should be focused on because it comes right over where that slot was taken.
Yeah, I get that. So a couple of things I heard there, like when the call gets canceled, if it's an hour long, you're saying you recommend to spend 10 minutes trying to plan how you're going to spend the next 40 to 50.
I'm saying spend that 10, 15 minutes planning out what your week would ideally look like ahead of time.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to take that 10 minutes. You just turn on that extra calendar.
Wow.
By checking it off, and then it'll show you where your time should be focused.
Okay. I love that. Okay. So it's like you have blocks of time in your ideal calendar, and then you have your in your ideal calendar, and you have your real calendar, which is all the things that you have to do, vis-a-vis your boss or your customer or the support ticket or whatever, right? And then when you're not doing that, you have your North Star of your ideal calendar behind it or in front, whatever you want to do with it, right? And okay, this is 6:51. I have 10 minutes now to focus on what I really want to be doing. And this is what I want to be doing right now. Yeah.
Well, now what you want to be doing, because what we want to be doing is poking around LinkedIn.
But I'm asking this question because like my animal brain wants to check LinkedIn, but my logical and driving and motivated brain wants to do what's on the real calendar, the ideal calendar. You know what I mean?
I do. And I think we could take both of those, set them aside, and just focus on humans and habit. Yeah. So if every time someone cancels or every time you have time free up and the habit is turning on that calendar and doing whatever that says, knowing that is the best way to spend your time because you've put more than 10 minutes thinking about what to do during that 40, you maybe spent an hour planning out this, templated calendar. So you kind of like put yourself on autopilot, turn it on and go.
Mm-hmm. Do you do work on Saturday and Sunday, or are you still? I love what you said about just more the admitting that, hey, when I create this massive list of things I have to do, whether it's off or on work hours, like I could see how that would get, like not depressing, but just like exhausting. Like you're kind of always behind the 8 ball. You know what I mean? So curious more about your hours that are not 9 to 5 and how you spend those.
So for a long time, I worked on Saturdays and Sundays. For a long time, I would.
Go ahead.
You're good.
My dog jumped off the bed and she isn't big enough to jump back on. So, okay. So for a long time, what?
For a long time, I was working on the weekends. And I stopped. I stopped doing that probably at the beginning of this year. because of that burnout, that sense of like, it's no longer like a week, right? If you're working on the weekends, and I was working on the weekends. And if you remember, I was teaching that SDR course over at
Yeah.
Rework on the weekends too. So, I mean, it was just,
You were just
I didn't
packed.
have a 5-day week. I had a
Yeah.
7-day week with a weekend whenever I took a day off. And even then, it would still be checking my emails. So
Yeah.
I got myself out of the habit of working on the weekends. And if that means working more throughout the week, so be it. However, um, the weekends are the only way to kind of like get yourself to enjoy one day doing whatever it is you want to do. Sunday, if I work, it's not necessarily work. It's maybe responding to a few emails and planning out my week for the
Yeah.
one to come.
Yeah.
Because it's chaos in my mind when I come in on a Monday and I haven't actually thought about what I'm going to do that Monday or
Yeah.
how I'm going to play out that week versus spending just an hour on a Sunday to do so. So
Yeah.
I think weekends are great. I think right now it's a good balance for me to not work weekends. That should be the rule of thumb. Spend it with your family, your friends, doing things you love.
Sure, man.
But the other thing that I'll layer in there is also not forgetting about yourself throughout the week, right? So whether that's 15 minutes of mindfulness, writing in a journal, doing a bit of a recap on your day, and just like maybe like, was it a success? Was it not? What could have been better? What could have been worse? Having these little things set up for yourself to then reflect on and also just take a moment can go a long way to help with burnout.
Yeah. A couple things. So today I had one of those burnout days where I was just like back to back, and then those things that I should have done, the tedious stuff, but it's still like essential. Like that stuff kept getting pushed back, and that added to this pressure of like, okay, in this call, and I wasn't able to be focused on these calls to get this stuff done, and then something else pops up that's more urgent or it's in the same level, so I get that one done, but I still have 5 more. And I realized like I'm gonna lose my mind here. Like I need to go to the park. I literally laid in the grass in the park and turned on Headspace and just like meditated for 15 minutes. So you're preaching to the choir there, man. And I was able to like, okay, like let's be honest. Like of these things, I'm supposed to get these done today, but can some of them wait till tomorrow? Like yes, they can. Like, but that like acceptance gave me the ability to actually be productive with the rest of the day, and I would have just been in that tailspin of like pressure. So all this, people like you and me, man, like we are just machines, like not in a arrogant way. We are like, that's what I want to be. I want to be productive. I want to produce value. But some people might not understand why you put that kind of pressure on yourself. It's for me, I'm not going to speak for you. There's a pressure that I'm trying to work through here. And not to get too deep into the psychology or the, cognitive therapy stuff, but like, loving yourself and giving yourself a break, letting yourself be human is really, really important, especially for the profile types like us,
Yeah. I'm curious, if you could redo the day, is there a way to redo today without making it as hectic, knowing all the things that would come up?
So I took Tuesday off after Labor Day. So it's already stacking. Then yesterday I was driving back from Indianapolis where my parents are. So then there's other things that were stacking where I couldn't. So maybe I could have worked for an hour last night. What I love that you said is spending Sunday planning your week, because I could have anticipated what was going to happen today if I would have just spent 10, 15 minutes on it on Sunday or whenever I would have, maybe last night. Right.
Yep.
So, you've already given me awesome feedback and advice on the double calendar, but I just, I can see that for me, based on my number this year, based on all the accounts I'm working, all the deals I'm working, I'm looking to change some things up and become more effective. And those two things are going to be, hopefully, I'll report back to you how those things are. But do you have any feedback or like ideas for how Nick doesn't get completely, overwhelmed at noon on a Thursday?
So I think just setting up your day for success the day before. So even if it's taking 30 minutes out of every day, like towards the end of your day, to just not like during that 30 minutes, you stop thinking about anything happening today and you look at your calendar for tomorrow
Mhm.
and you think, okay, is there a proposal I need to put together? Is there, something I have to send to someone? Like, can any of this be done today? So that tomorrow, if a fire does start, if I need to, jump into a conversation, or if there is something that is maybe more important than something else, but the other thing is already scheduled, it won't interfere with the things that could have been done because they're already done and you're set up for success going into any call or conversation that you're having.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of last thing here, before I go over to some other stuff. Um, I think that the type of work is really important for an AE. Like there's focus time where I'm putting together value and decks that take some critical thinking. Okay, for this company that manufactures RVs, they have a frontline worker group that build these parts, right? And they're going to use different stuff in the Microsoft stack than the CEO will, right? So it's like that that critical thinking of what would they use. I can't be answering an email or be on a call to do that. That's focus time. Then there's the tedious tasks of getting back to customers with support questions, or, hey, this is in this licensing package, but not this one. Um, I personally think that stuff should all be unloaded to someone different, and I should strictly be focused on hunting and selling. And they try to make it like that, but at a certain point, you can't possibly, um, you're the guy for this product within this account, right? So I'm saying that this company has my back, but there's always going to be tasks that I don't want to do that aren't the best use of my time. So I'd call those the tedious tasks. And
Yep.
there's probably two or three other buckets of type of activity that take different parts of the brain and where you have to move at different frequencies, right? So I think that's an important piece too, is like, where is it possible to block the tedious stuff? And this is the hard part for me. When it comes in, say, I'm not going to answer this for 3 more hours, or until, tonight, when I know that this is when I've scheduled the time to answer the tedious stuff, right? Almost like give yourself an SLA in a way.
Yep.
So again, I'm just throwing ideas out there, trying to hack this thing.
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to hack it, there's a lot of different things to try, right? So you technically should have that support, but you feel like sometimes you don't. Is there anyone? So a few things come to mind, right? If someone's coming to you with questions that maybe are better answered by somebody else at your org, can you introduce them to that person or that contact, or maybe make that very clear when you're first introducing yourself and like the deal potential, whatever it may be, as I'm your guy for the whole evaluation, but for technical support for things like this, you're better off asking such and such.
Yeah.
And so that when those things come in, you can pass them off, or just let them know like if I send you something and you're my rep and there's money on the line, unless your answer is going to move the needle that day, you're probably going to want to hold off to the end of the day. So focus on whatever's more important that day, but still get back to them within like a 3 to 5 hour range, but let them know, right? So if you ever, send me an email and I don't get back to you, just know that my priority is to get back to you by the end of the day. If for whatever reason I don't, you'll hear from me first thing in the morning. So that you set that expectation, and that if your day is just crazy back to back all day, at least it's not leaving a bad taste in their mouth, thinking that the experience could have been better.
Yeah, no, I like that. And Microsoft is an amazing company with more than enough resources. Like, I should be sending it to the CSM, the customer success person, but I tend to want to just answer it and get it off my plate. But in reality, if I do that enough, all that stuff adds up.
Not so let me just jump in for 1 second, because not only does it add up and takes away from your time, right?
Yeah.
But the second you answer a question like that, any follow-up questions are directed to you too.
To me, yeah.
And it looks worse if you're passing them off second or third email than if you were making that introduction right off the bat.
Yeah.
So if there's a CSM supporting you, let them do their job. Let them support you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Wow, there's a lot to digest here. This is like super deep, like AE time stuff. And whether it's an engineer or an artist or like a doctor that's listening, I hope they have the chance that this stuff is relevant. But man, it's I appreciate it because I can feel that you understand and that you know the pain of like how the heck do I figure this time management stuff out, right? Because it's like, let's reverse engineer this, Rob. You have a quota. It might be a year, it might be 3 months, it might be a week. Your job is to bring revenue in, right? Okay, what tasks bring revenue in? And like, it's fair to say that the support question, while you already did close that deal, that's not bringing new revenue in, right? So it's like, I just hope that every salesperson has a manager or managers that have their back, that want us and understand that we should be saying no a lot. You know what I mean?
It, personally, I think they do, at least on my end.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone has a role for a reason. Everyone has a purpose for what they do. I think we as salespeople tend to get hung up on wanting to answer those questions.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a good leader, right? A good leader gives good direction, doesn't try to do the whole thing by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So be able to delegate when necessary, especially if you've already closed the business. I mean, at this point, there should be very little interaction or very little time spent trying to do something that isn't in your job description.
Yeah. Cool, man. Yeah, let's go back up 10,000 feet. How's life been post working from home? Are you still out there in the burbs? Are you coming to the city ever for Sprout's office? How are you guys looking at remote work? Talk to me about just your general day. Like, where's your body standing or sitting most of the day?
Standing and sitting most of the day here in the office, or I'll be in the backyard. I actually did just get back from a 2-week trip to Florida, so nice. I spent some time working out there. But it's been probably one of the biggest challenges, like going into lockdown and then just working remote moving forward. I always wanted to work remote. I always thought that I'm more productive at home, and that's only 50% true, right? Because I feel like 50% of my productivity and creativity comes from not only having conversations with others, but also listening to conversations and learning from what people are doing differently.
Yep.
Losing that has been a big setback. And I don't only mean for me, I think especially for anyone new coming into sales, right? Like, I can't imagine going through everything I've gone through since graduation and getting into like my actual career without being able to piggyback off what other people are doing and learning from them.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's the classic water cooler talk that they call it. I mean, I love working from the office. I can do home. If it was up to me, I'd probably do half and half, but I'd be able to choose what I want to do that day every time. But we take a pretty conservative approach toward, everything going on. And so we're trying to let people work from home as much as possible. I love the energy also of just going to the office, the commute, picking up the coffee, right? Like seeing all the people. I literally gather like energy from that every morning.
Sure.
And 100%. I remember back at here, I would get there at 9 and I was like on fire, ready to go. I had to literally lock myself in a room every morning for like 3 years to just like focus. What do I want to do today? Because I have so much energy. I'm so ready to go right now. Kind of
channel it.
Yeah, maybe I should do that now. Like lock myself in a space and just say, this is how I'm going to plan this day.
Well, it's kind of, you're locked in a space as is.
Yeah, it's locked down. Cool, man.
But to your point, I am thinking so I miss that, right? And I don't see myself going back into the office at Sprout for some time, just with the new Delta variant and everything else going on. We're using like a phased approach to slowly reintroduce people back to the office.
Yeah.
So I don't see myself going back for at least a year. And then we've been given the option to continue working remote indefinitely. So I am thinking about, and if anyone's listening and has any suggestions, drop a comment. I guess that's what we should say. But kind of like bringing that rework space of collaboration and working together into the suburbs, right? Like not any of these established places, but just a place for people to get together, have coffee in the morning, converse, work for a few hours, go back home or stay the day. I don't know, but just like build the little community. Because what I miss is not only being in the office, but also going to the events that we used to go to together.
Yeah, dude.
So now it's like a double whammy because I don't go into the office, and I do have about an hour to an hour and a half commute into the city, right? So if an event starts at 5 or 6, there's no way I'm going to make it on time if I want to work a full day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so that looks a lot like a co-working space, what you're mentioning, but you're almost
Right.
looking for something like for a few hours, not every morning, but when the mornings that you feel like you want to do it. I'm lucky. I live in West Loop. So there's somewhere called the Hoxton that has, what's it called? It's a co-working space inside there. And I'm able to kind of mimic that energy that I'm looking for, but also not necessarily like, be a full-time tenant. Like I'll work from the hotel restaurant under the hotel kind of thing. Um, so yeah,
But
dude.
sorry, that addresses half of it, right? That addresses the need to be around. It's like that library
Yeah,
effect where you're in
I
the
know,
library, you
man.
see people studying, but what you're still not getting is like the sales team. Like one of you is the
Crowd.
raw
Yeah.
person, right? And one
Yeah.
of you is the critical thinker. One of you is great with reports. One of you is
Yeah.
great with prospecting. Like being able to go to different people for different things. So
Uh-huh.
I want to like a rework for sales teams, right? Where it's like
Uh-huh.
I don't care what you're selling, but if you're selling software, because we're selling software,
Uh-huh.
then let's just feed off of each other in that sense.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, it's what you're almost asking for is someone like teams that are built around people's strengths so that the strengths are supplementary. Is that what you're saying?
That could be, yeah, something like that, or just
Yeah.
being able to be around those people to leverage them and use them and provide value back in an everyday setting.
Yeah. Cool, man. Um, I don't know. Hopefully people that are listening have an idea for that. I mean, I'm sure we're both gonna get hit up by a bunch of co-working salespeople trying to get us to use their space. Anyway, man. So how's Maggie doing? Does she mind when you work on Sundays sometimes?
She doesn't mind when it's been like how it has been for the past few months, but
Yeah.
before when I was working 7 days, I mean, yeah, that could definitely take a toll on any friendship, relationship, between friends,
Yeah.
family, significant others,
Yeah.
uh, and your just personal life in general, right?
Yeah. I
You,
know. I asked that question because it's like, you have a girlfriend or you have a friend, even like you have parents. If you're working all the time, that can't be the path to, I don't think happiness is what it's all about. I think meaning is, but that certainly isn't the path to meaning. It might be the path to maximizing your W-2, right? But like it's there's so much more than that. But
I think
um yeah,
also though, I think there are parts of our lives where we should put our head down and just work.
totally, dude. Yeah.
Where yes, like you need to have a social life. Yes, you need to go do things, but I think that some of us will get things
Yeah.
faster than others.
Mhm.
And if we want to compete and we want to stay in the space that we're in, and like you said, like you almost need to be a machine to do this, you've got to do your due, right? You've got to pay your dues, and
Uh-huh.
whatever that means for you to be successful or to be, at least at par with everyone else on your team.
Mhm.
Over time, you'll get
Yeah.
better at it.
Yeah. I got a kind of a weird question. Are you from like Polish immigrants, or like how far back does your family go in the US? Because your drive is like impeccable. I love it.
Yeah, I'm first gen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know if, well, yeah, I definitely think that has a lot to do with my drive.
Uh-huh.
What did you call it earlier when we were talking? You said the mentality to you were burning out. It'll come back to me.
Okay. Yeah, something about burning out or just becoming a robot. I don't know. Was it a good context or a bad context?
It was the context of doing something and like the verb you described it. It'll come back to me.
Okay. For sure, man. I mean, so I come from a pretty rough area in Indianapolis. Like my parents didn't have a lot. So for me, it's not even the money, it's more like comfort. This idea of being really, really fucking good at something and having no one be able to take it from you, no matter what. Feeling like if I was to lose this job, I'd get another one and I'd kill it there too, because it's me. And it's not about, I think I used to be driven by like kind of some vain narcissistic qualities. I've really tapped into like the spiritual side of why I do what I do recently. So you can see like I'm asking these deep questions because um I'm developing, but I'm also seeing where God, like I will just never be good at time management naturally. I need some tips and tools to get this done. because I am, like I said, animalistic. Like, um, I'm very much instant gratification tempted. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So I'm always looking for the way to shortcut it or to get to the goal without doing the work. But what you said is so important. Like, you just got to put your head down and go. Like, that's, some people just need that kick in the butt, and some people already do it. But I think for an AE, if you want to be top 25% of AEs out there, specifically selling technology sales, like, you need a plan and you need a strategy to do it. You know what I mean?
I'd say the only other thing you need, and this would maybe be my recommendation as like the first thing to explore, it's why do you want to do it in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you can go sell anything. Why do you want to sell software? Why do you want to be in this space? Why do you want to be in this environment and work with these teammates? But that why, going back to your point, like having a reason for what you do, having that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
There was something I wanted to substitute earlier, and I can't remember what it was, but what I wanted to say was substitute that word, because it was something about getting through those like mundane tasks.
Yeah.
And just having the desire to finish it, the desire, right? Getting into the mentality of changing mindset where it's like, oh shit, I got to get through all this. It's like, how do you just mentally give yourself the desire to do it? How do you turn a support email into, a long-term goal? Like, how does that get you closer? If you can start tying those things in together, it no longer seems like a task. It just seems like another step on the stairway to wherever it is you're going.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I think I was maybe use the word tedious or just like sloshing through it, finding a way to, like, you have to answer those essential small tasks that are like, you know, just required for the job. But maybe you'll get to it in a couple minutes. Do kind of want to wrap up here. I'll never forget when I went to your office and I sat by your desk, and I could see how Sprout was set up in the office. There's like you and like two other people there, but desks were close together, not too close, but close, right? And then you had all these breakout rooms, and I could just see like you got so much shit done at your desk. You showed me LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and you showed me your ability to sort by different searches, right? You put the company names in, and you put the industry in, and then every morning you refresh it and you see who's new, right? That might be different than what you're doing now with your SMB AE role, but I thought that was just amazing, man. Seeing how you prospect and the different ways you were able to sort LinkedIn Sales Navigator to get new fish. It was awesome.
Yeah, definitely still doing that. I mean, if you could find something that works and then actually point to it and say that's what worked, and that's usually the hard part. And then you find a way to help yourself automate that process where something that's working is being done on your behalf because technology is this crazy, amazing thing. I don't need to go and filter through a list every morning and start going through all these accounts all over again. They could notify me when a new account comes into my radar.
Yeah.
I think using that logic, like how do I do something really well that works, and how do I make it more efficient, and then how do I automate it, using that approach, but in the same context of cutting corners, I think will work well. But if you're always trying to cut a corner, and I'm not saying that you are, but you did mention that like you're trying to hack
it.
Yeah. I feel like if we find ourselves hacking too much, we hack away at our progress, because then we're not taking the time to actually learn the nitty gritty that is necessary for being able to later, skip a step or two because we just know how it works.
Yeah. And I don't think I mean hack as in like, how do I be lazy here? It's more like, how do I look at this and do the minimal amount of work for the greatest amount of return? It's this idea of being
sounds lazy, but it actually takes a lot of work to figure it out, right?
The word is optimal. How do I optimize my time? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Cool. So every podcast guest, I ask a question. Some of them are funny, some of them are serious. This has been like a super great, serious conversation about how the hell you get shit done in a sales role. Like, give me your coolest cold intro, and you don't talk about what you did, but talk about the process and how that cold intro led to a closed deal. Do you have any stories like that? And like, you might have even surprised yourself, like, oh my God, like even if it was 3 years ago, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe I used that tactic and it worked. It's okay to brag for a second here if you think about a deal.
Give me a minute.
For sure, bud.
I'm trying to think back.
Think about the office. Think about maybe if right when you started with COVID, think about, let's say you had a presentation to your greater team when it's like, oh, this is what worked. This is what Rob did that worked. And now he's going to tell you how he did it. Right. Like, tell me that story.
Are you looking for something that you can repeat or just like something
No,
that was just one
for
off
my
that?
list, like something interesting that my listeners can be like, damn, that's cool, right? Like leave my listeners on an awesome note. Like it doesn't have to be a big deal. Just it doesn't have to be a deal. Like you need to get into Ford Motors, right? And you had to figure out a way to do it. And you sent this specific LinkedIn message. Or like I'm looking for like sales superstar gymnastics type stuff. Like what have you been able not to hack, but to optimize to in one specific incident?
Okay. So there was an account that I was trying to break into. It was the CTO that I was the CMO that I was trying to get a hold of. I find that new things work better because new things are new. So if you're the first person to send me a video message, I'm going to check it out because I just want to know what a video message is, right?
Yeah.
So you've got that leg up. And I remember I was calling this gentleman for, I mean, all month. And then I'm like, you know what? He was East Coast. It was like my 5 o'clock. I'm like, I'm gonna wait till like 5:30, 5:40 on my end.
Yeah.
Get him later in the evening. I did. He picked up and he told me that he couldn't talk because he was making spaghetti for dinner. And I'm like, hey, okay, no worries. Hung up on me pretty abruptly. So what I did is I went on LinkedIn on my phone and I started recording the voice memo and I started rattling off the most incredible spaghetti recipe that I could find doing like a 2-minute search. He engaged with it later that night and we had a conversation later that week that ended up closing about a month later.
Oh yeah.
But I think it was the voice memo thing that really stood out because he had called out that no one's ever used that. Granted, I think it was new around this time, but staying up to date on your tool stack, staying up to date on what people like BDRs are doing, staying up to date on like those tips, tricks, and tactics will make you the sharpest AE that you can be. And I think giving advice and giving feedback and providing value to those individuals in those roles will not only be appreciated and go a long way, but also is the best way to learn for yourself, like what is new, because you don't spend your time doing what they do anymore. So using things like that stand out and really get people's attention.
Yeah. So you basically got off the phone with him. He said, I'm making spaghetti. You pulled your phone out after the call was hung up and you created a voice memo with a spaghetti recipe.
I did because I remember. So he picked up and he said, "I can't talk. I'm making dinner." And I forgot. He said he forgot something about his spaghetti recipe.
Uh-huh.
And so when he hung up, I initially just went back, looked through Google, found a recipe that I would use, and then I just rattled off the recipe to him and then sent the link afterwards too.
Nice. Great creativity. Kind of the last question on that. Do you think that a CMO says yes to that, where like a CTO or, some analyst is like, that's weird. Like, do you think the profile mattered? Do you think it was more the fact that you're willing to try new stuff to any prospect?
I think if you're going to look at it from that context, I think using the what's new approach would be the best takeaway. I don't think I would use the same tactic, the same approach if I was reaching out to the CEO or CMO of Ford, right? Like know who your buyer is, know who your customers, like their lingo, what they talk about, what business size they are. So know all those things before you make a call. Obviously, hopefully you're doing your homework, but I think that applies, but it would be different.
Yeah. Okay.
I do want to say one thing that I've been thinking about, because you mentioned this is a motivational podcast. And I think that in sales, there's a lot of things that need to be done and a lot of people will do and a lot of people will hate, but they'll push through knowing what the outcome will be. So when it comes to motivation specifically, I don't think sales is a role for anyone that continues to look for motivation.
To look for it. Yeah.
I feel like if you need to be motivated to do the daily things, then you're probably doing the wrong thing. right? There
Yeah.
should be a desire or like an understanding
Mhm.
of why you're doing these tasks. And the motivation might be when you're working on something big, or the motivation to take on something that you don't think you can handle, but you bring on that responsibility regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes
Um,
back to what you said about the why. Like, okay, Nick, you obviously are doing this and you're spending your time on it, but like, why? Um, why? It's like, I know I want to do this because I know what it feels like to not have a job. I know what it feels like to have a sales job that sucks. And I want to sell, right? And I want to do something productive with my day. But I think I need to develop that why. But like, how do I take the support ticket and make it something that I don't need motivation to do? And I might always need motivation for the support ticket, but it's also, I see what you're saying about people, if they're just digging deep every single day for every single task to get motivated to do it, you might be in the wrong role.
right. And to your point, take the ticket out of it. Take the ticket out of the equation. Take your role out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
When you're sick and you feel shitty and it's rainy out,
Mm-hmm.
and the last thing you want to do is get out of bed,
Mm-hmm.
why do you get out of bed?
Yeah.
Because when you can push through all that, because I mean, we've all been sick. We know how that feels, right? What drives you to get out of bed? Like, why? Why? And that why should be pushing through your entire day, so you can always revert back to. And I personally like a dream board type thing.
Yeah.
If you do work from home, put it up somewhere, put on the things that you're working towards, and if you forget, just look up and remind yourself.
Yeah. That's kind of the thing. Like, there's so much, and it's not things, it's like dreams, right? So
Well,
I'm thinking about getting
ho-
a board.
hopefully plans,
Yeah.
right? Because a dream, or yeah, a dream is a goal without a plan.
Yeah. Do you tend to put like dates on your plans or no? Like deadlines for yourself?
I mean, so yes, but not on the dream board itself. The dream board is the picture, but date wise,
Yeah.
like at the beginning of every year, setting yourself up with milestones and like ways to check in on progress,
Mm-hmm.
both personally and professionally, I think are a good way to a good place to start, because you're starting at the beginning of the year, but you don't have to wait for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then giving yourself real attainable goals, right? So there has to be a metric around it. So if your dream is to buy a boat,
Mm-hmm.
and the boat that you want is this much money, how many deals do you have to sell every month where you can take that portion of money to put away after you've paid your bills and done everything that you need to do? How many months is that going to take you, and how many
Yeah.
deals do you have to send? What percent do you have to come in at each month? And then one of those would be your goals, right? The
Yeah.
number of deals, the money you bring in, whatever it is.
Yeah. Again, with the kind of reverse engineering. Last question before we wrap up. On the dream board, do you put other things besides the dreams on, like, or do you have one dream board and then one to-do list board? Like, how do you connect the dreams to the midterm items to the short-term items?
You don't, because the short-term items alone won't get you there, right? So you got to look at it holistically. Like one day out of 1 week out of 1 month is nothing that is going to make or break that dream board. But if you continue to do it, and if you continue to monitor progress, and you can actually monitor and track it,
Yeah.
then you're on your way to success.
Yeah. Amazing, dude. This is the kind of thing I miss, right? Like, this is the kind of feeling I have right now when I would leave like a ESF event or sales assembly, whatever it is. Like, you feel like you have stretched your mind in a creative way after this kind of conversation. So I thank you.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for having me.
For sure, man. Definitely come down to West Loop sometime. I'll replace that drink for you.
Man, I'll be down there this weekend.
Sounds good, dude. I'll be around, and let's all hang.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, dude. Thanks again for the talk, and give me a couple days to edit. I'll throw it on YouTube, and I'd love to figure out ways to promote it. Promote you, promote Sprout. Let's figure it out. Okay.